ordinary at lunchtime? Why not try something smart to chew on? The Lunchroom on RCI, Monday to Friday, 12:45 to 2 p.m. The Lunchroom, informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI, food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International for Friday the 31st of October 2025, and we are on to program number 1478 of the Lunchroom. I'm your host, Calix George Jr. In addition to, of course, 101.1 FM radio, you can also get us at our website, rcistlucia.com, and we are streaming live on Facebook. You just have to search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International on Facebook. And please be sure to like and share that as well with your friends and family. And of course, if you want to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, the number to do so, 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And we can also be reached on 724-0008. Again, 724-0008. Look back in time on this Hallows Eve or Halloween day, and of course we are going as far back as 1517 when Martin Luther sent his 95 Theses to Albert of Brandenburg, the Archbishop of Mainz, precipitating the start of the Protestant Reformation. In the year 1541 on this day, Michelangelo finished painting the Last Judgment on the altar wall of the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican. In the year 1876, the great Bakengaj cyclone of 1876 ravaged British India, modern-day Bangladesh, killing an estimated 200,000 people. 1917 on this day, the British War Cabinet gave final approval to the issue of the Balfour Declaration to support a national home for the Jewish people in what was a then Ottoman-controlled Palestine. A bit of history in the Spanish flu on this day. In the year 1918, the Spanish flu killed 21,000 people in the United States in a single week. And in 2011, on this day, the world population reached 7 billion, according to the United Nations. We now move on to our dish of the day.
Every bed in our hospitals tells a story of someone's mother, someone's brother, someone's friend. And when that story of care is complete, it's time for the next chapter, home. But too often, discharged patients are left waiting hours, days, weeks, sometimes months, not because they want to stay, but because no one comes. We understand life gets busy. But every extra day they wait means another patient, perhaps in pain, perhaps in crisis, can't get the bed they desperately need. So when the call comes that your loved one is ready, please be ready too. Pick them up, bring them back to the comfort of family, where healing truly continues. Because caring doesn't end at discharge, it continues with you. A message from the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Elderly Affairs.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. Of course, our apologies that we haven't been on air for the past 2 days, but of course we are back, and hope we can have a very good program here today. Now, of course, I just want to make mention of ongoing efforts at relief and humanitarian assistance to Jamaica in the aftermath of the Category 5 Hurricane Melissa, which packed winds of, I think, up to 185 miles per hour, gusts, record-breaking gusts, I think some of the highest ever recorded in a hurricane, 252 miles per hour, and it has certainly caused a significant amount of devastation in the island, across the island, but in particular in the western section, the parishes such as St. Elizabeth, certainly being ground zero for the fall, the impact there of that hurricane. Thus far, a record, I think, of 14 persons thus far confirmed dead. Of course, that figure may very well be shifting. And we are seeing efforts right here in St. Lucia to be able to provide some level of support to Jamaica. There's, in fact, also been announcements coming out of Guyana, as you would have, of course, heard earlier on in our newscast. President Irfan Ali indicating support for Guyana and Haiti at this certainly very difficult time in their development. Venezuela, in fact, seeing an article here indicating that 46 tons of humanitarian aid being sent to both Cuba and Jamaica. In the case of Cuba, of course, in the south of the island, in the region of Santiago, they certainly faced some hardship as a result of that direct hit from that hurricane as well. So Jamaica, in fact, receiving 20 tons of aid, and in fact a mission, I think, being led by Raul Licausi, Vice Minister in Venezuela. So, of course, the efforts are going to be continuing, and the need to reconstruct is no doubt on the minds of Jamaican authorities at this time. And according to the Prime Minister, Andrew Holness, that they are, in fact, looking to build back better. And in some instances where certain facilities existed, he's pointed out that in some instances they perhaps should not have been there, and so they are going to be looking at the overall planning, certainly of some of their towns, in particular that of Black River, which certainly got, I think, nearly 95% of all the structures damaged in that town, in that community in Jamaica. So certainly we need to continue to think of them and keep them in our prayers as they continue their efforts at recovery at this time. Just also want to make mention, of course, the annual Christmas barrel, that concession that is provided each year by the government of St. Lucia. That has kicked in, and as a result of a cabinet decision, and in fact has already kicked in from the 15th of October, and it's going to run up until the last day in February. Of course, that window, again, a very important time for St. Lucians, who, of course, in the Christmas mood and are trying to get things nice for the end of the year and the celebrations around then, or quite often take an opportunity to do shopping, and as well, of course, St. Lucians living in the diaspora quite often want to give back to friends and family at home. And so, of course, this program, which commenced some years ago under the Kenny Anthony administration, has become a bit of a staple within the calendar. And so, of course, a lot of people who have family overseas, in particular the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom, they tend to want to send down a barrel and some sort of goodies. And so, of course, this is in place, a 100% waiver on import duties on a range of essential goods. And, of course, these are things for personal consumption, not for resale. And each household being allowed up to 2 barrels with a maximum declared value of 3,000 EC dollars per barrel. And of course, as I mentioned, I think there's also, excuse me, notably that there are also exemptions of those barrels from other taxes like the Health and Citizen Security Levy, as well as VAT. So, of course, the VAT aspect is, I believe, pending parliamentary approval. But certainly, the general idea is that this is, in fact, going to be an opportunity for individuals to perhaps get certain things that they require in their households. So that is certainly very welcome news indeed. So I also mention one matter a little close to home, and that is with respect to my father, Sir Calix George, being honored for a lifetime of service, and that is in respect of the University of the West Indies preferring him an honorary doctorate this year. And there's a story coming out of St. Lucia Times in respect of this. And just to very quickly read that as well, is as follows. Distinguished St. Lucian agronomist, educator, and statesman Sir Calix George will be among 11 Caribbean visionaries honored by the University of the West Indies, UWI, during its 2025 graduation ceremonies, receiving the Doctor of Laws, LLD, honoris causa from the UWI Global Campus. Sir Calix's recognition marks yet another milestone in a remarkable career that has spanned more than 6 decades of public service, scientific research, and national development. A proud alumnus of St. Mary's College, Sir Calix won an open scholarship to study agriculture at the University College of the West Indies, St. Augustine, before earning his BSc in 1963 and MSc in soil science from the University of Reading in the United Kingdom in 1966. On returning home, he served as Chief Research Officer and later Acting Chief Agricultural Officer in St. Lucia's Ministry of Agriculture, leading research and farmer training across the Windward Islands. His leadership later extended to the Caribbean Agricultural Research and Development Institute, CARDI, where he became Executive Director, coordinating regional agricultural innovation and capacity building. George also played a pivotal role in transforming the banana industry as Managing Director of the St. Lucia Banana Growers Association, overseeing the establishment of the Windward Islands Banana Development and Export Company, WIPDECO, and securing key export contracts that modernized the sector. Beyond agriculture, his contributions to governance and policy were far-reaching. He served as President of the Senate between 1979 and 1982, and later as Leader of Government Business in the Senate from 1997 to 2006. During his tenure, he held several ministerial portfolios, including communications, works, agriculture, and home affairs. Amongst his lasting achievements was the liberalization of the telecommunications in the OECS and the establishment of the Eastern Caribbean Telecommunications Authority, ECTEL, where he served as founding chair. Knighted as a Commander of the Order of St. Lucia, KCSL, George has continued to contribute to public life even in retirement, authoring St. Mary's College, the Caribbean's Nobel Laureate School, and working on his autobiography chronicling his years of service. The UWI described this year's honorary graduates as exceptional individuals who have made significant contributions to their fields, reflecting the institution's commitment to celebrating excellence and innovation across the Caribbean. Other 2025 honorees include reggae icon Marcia Griffiths, philosopher Professor Paget Henry, aviation leader Lyndon Gardner, and musician Mungal Patasar, among others. Ceremonies recognizing the awardees began on October 11 and will run until November 8, 2025, across the university's 5 campuses. And that story coming from Karen Nelson of the St. Lucia Times. Now, also want to make mention that this week there was also a renaming ceremony in honor of Winston Paris. So Winston Paris is a very well-known St. Lucian luminary and medical professional who uh, certainly has credited himself very, very well in terms of his work in pain management. And Winston, in fact, has spent a very, very long time of his career in the United States, where he was an anesthesiologist and went on to, in fact, establish at the Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee, one of the leading pain centers and pain clinics in the United States. And certainly so impressive was his work that he, in fact, was nominated for the Nobel Prize. And so, certainly, Dr. Paris, who's a native of St. Lucia, as I said, coming from Marianne Street in Castries, certainly has raised the profile of St. Lucia, showing, of course, that we have been able to perform such remarkable work in so many different areas, including economics and literature, in medicine, and so certainly we certainly want to recognize this notable gentleman who has distinguished himself and St. Lucia in this regard. In fact, he was, of course, also awarded a knighthood not too long ago, of course, and so we want to recognize the work that he has done. Now, the decision, of course, was taken by the government of St. Lucia to change the name of what is to become a refashioned and revitalized institution, which was originally established as far back as 1887, that of Victoria Hospital. And of course, in those days, 1887 happened to also be the same year as the Golden Jubilee of the monarch of the time, the head of state of the United Kingdom, and of course, St. Lucia being a colony, there were many honors afforded the sovereign Queen Victoria, who was at that point in time the longest serving British monarch. And I think there were about at least 4 honors which were afforded her, or at least that was the original intention. One being the naming of Victoria Hospital in her honor. But in addition to that, we also noted that Victoria Street was named in her honor. I think previous to that, and I'll have to find out exactly what the name of that street was, but I think it might have been State Street or something like that, the French equivalent of Rue des États. But in addition to that, we also saw the Victoria Park being established. And in fact, there was also an effort to have a grammar school established in her honor. And of course, that ended up becoming St. Mary's College. But there was an effort to actually call it Queen's College. But anyways, so that was that period. And of course, we've seen a change in respect of that. We've now seen a new general hospital established for St. Lucia, that of the Owen King European Union Hospital, of course, named after, again, a very notable St. Lucian physiologist, Dr. Owen King, surgeon, who certainly worked a tremendous amount of time at Victoria Hospital and in the service of medicine in St. Lucia. And so now a decision being taken to break with that colonial name and to, in fact, see a new, a son of the soil, actually placing that name on that facility, which of course is also being refashioned in other ways, with the Betty Wells Polyclinic being a unit within that facility. So again, we want to recognize Sir Winston Paris for the extensive amount of work that he has done, and the pride certainly that he has been able to bring to St. Lucia in his work in pain medicine. He has been a founding member of so many academies of American Academy of Pain Medicine, American College of Pain Medicine. He really has been one of the trailblazers in the area of pain medicine. And at the ceremony which was held in his honor, in fact, it's quite telling that he gave a very personal explanation about his own interaction with that facility at the tender age of just 9 months, when he had to be brought in for I think a hernia removal operation. And at that time, the process of anesthesiology was very, very nascent. It was rudimentary, to say the least, and he was nearly left for dead at the end of that operation. And had it not been for a nurse, Nurse Warrican, who was present. In fact, he was heading to the morgue, and she attempted to give him what was known then as the kiss of life, or the kiss of, well, I guess the kiss of death, or was it the kiss of life? But either way, what was, predating CPR in those days, and thankfully was able to resuscitate him, and of course we have to thank her, because he is now right here with us, however many years on, and so that he can now, in fact, we as a country can recognize the ability of ourselves to do great things. And of course, hopefully it will be an inspiration for many, many others, many other surgeons and doctors and medical practitioners who can now look towards emulating what he has done, what Owen King has been able to achieve, or had been able to achieve in his lifetime. And so certainly very welcome move, I would say, in this regard. That's our dish of the day for today. And of course, we're going to be switching on to take in our weather report at this time. And then later on, I'm hoping that we can actually get on air Dr. Janive Remy, who is in fact the director of the Sir Sridhar Ramphal Center for International Trade over at the University of the West Indies, and to discuss an event which was actually happening, a conference, a 2-day conference over at the Harbour Club earlier on this week, focused on the matter of industrial policy in the Caribbean. And hopefully we're going to get an opportunity to chat a little bit about the space of trade right about now. So we're going to be getting into that just after the weather report.
This has been The Daily Dish.
Every bed in our hospitals tells a story of someone's mother, someone's brother, someone's friend. And when that story of care is complete, it's time for the next chapter, home. But too often, discharged patients are left waiting hours, days, weeks, sometimes months, not because they want to stay, but because no one comes. We understand life gets busy, but every extra day they wait means another patient, perhaps in pain, perhaps in crisis, can't get the bed they desperately need. So when the call comes that your loved one is ready, please be ready too. Pick them up, bring them back to the comfort of family, where healing truly continues. Because caring doesn't end at discharge, it continues with you. A message from the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Elderly Affairs.
And it's now time for your weather report, brought to you by Island Style.
Girl, I've been so stressed searching for the perfect tiles to complete my home.
Really?
Yeah, it's always the same white, beige, and gray tiles with these tile stores. Like they're all buying from the same place. You're the design expert. Help me, please. I'm fed up.
What are you looking for?
Something different. Something that says Caribbean beauty and suits my personality. Something vibrant and classy with a little razzle dazzle.
Okay, Ms. Razzle Dazzle, I know just the place. Island Style Tile and Bath, they're my #1 store for everything tile. And with their new In Living Color collection, you'll find the most gorgeous tiles to give you that splash of Caribbean flair you're looking for.
That sounds perfect.
I'll even take you myself and throw in a free design consultation.
I'll never say no to that, sis. I can't afford you anyway.
Visit our Island Style showrooms in Castries, Rodney Bay, and View Fort, or call 450-452 or 453 Tile. We'll help bring your vision to life in living color.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
And the forecast for St. Lucia valid for the next 24 hours. Winds will be blowing from between the east, southeast, and east near 17 miles per hour or 28 kilometers per hour, with gusts near shore. Weather: mostly cloudy skies with moderate to heavy showers and isolated thunderstorms. Residents and monitors in areas prone to flooding and landslides are advised to be vigilant and exercise caution. The forecast for the Lesser Antilles: partly cloudy to cloudy skies with scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms. Your tropical weather outlook: a tropical wave is expected to bring cloudiness and showers over the Lesser Antilles during the forecast period. This wave is moving westward near 12 miles per hour or 19 kilometers per hour. Tropical cyclone formation is not expected over the tropical Atlantic during the next 7 days. And that is your weather report, brought to you by Island Style.
This has been RCI's weather news. For more information, call the weather hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Girl, I've been so stressed searching for the perfect tiles to complete my home.
Really?
Yeah, it's always the same white, beige, and gray tiles with these tile stores. Like they're all buying from the same place. You're the design expert. Help me, please. I'm fed up.
What are you looking for?
Something different. Something that says Caribbean beauty and suits my personality. Something vibrant and classy with a little razzle dazzle.
Okay, Ms. Razzle Dazzle, I know just the place. Island Style Tile and Bath, they're my #1 store for everything tile. And with their new In Living Color collection, you'll find the most gorgeous tiles to give you that splash of Caribbean flair you're looking for.
That sounds perfect.
I'll even take you myself and throw in a free design consultation.
I'll never say no to that, sis. I can't afford you anyway.
Visit our Island Style showrooms in Castries, Rodney Bay, and View Fort, or call 450-452 or 453 Tile. We'll help bring your vision to life in living color.
And welcome back to the lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. And just as I mentioned earlier on, there was a conference which was being held, a workshop really, at the Harbour Club St. Lucia. And the whole thrust was promoting a sustainable CARICOM industrial policy through trade. And that was put on through a collaboration which involved the Caribbean community and the University of Oxford and a few other interesting trade-related agencies. And we're so very pleased that, of course, that we can have our very own national trade expert. She is Dr. Genevieve Remy, to be able to give us some thoughts about the importance of this event happening in St. Lucia, given, of course, what has been a rather interesting year in respect of trade and the back and forth and trade wars between some of the larger powers of the world. Dr. Remy, thanks so much for joining us here.
Hey, good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me. We've been threatening to have one of these calls for quite some time.
Yes, we have.
I'm really happy.
So I'm certainly very grateful that it is finally happening. And of course, Genevieve Remy is the director of the Street F. Ramphal Center for International Trade, Law Policy and Services within the University of the West Indies. And you are also a co-lead of Remaking Trade Project. I think that's a special initiative you perhaps will have to tell us a little bit about during the program as well. But of course, no doubt, it's always good to be back home.
Oh, it's always good to be. There's no place like home, even though it's raining badly today, but still.
Yes, indeed. So tell us a little bit about this event, this workshop promoting a sustainable CARICOM industrial policy through trade.
Right. So, Calix, there's actually two. We actually decided to do two workshops in one, and the industrial policy leg was actually the first day. We held it on the 28th, which was Tuesday, and then it followed in very quick succession by one of our more regular types of workshops, which is looking at the intersections between trade and something called the bioeconomy. So to start with the industrial policy, I don't know if many people know, but CARICOM has a framework under the legal instrument setting it up and regulating it, the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas. And part of that treaty dictates that member states should work together towards a common industrial policy. Now, this framework was created as part of the revised treaty that was actually put into force all the way in the 1990s. And as you can tell, industrial policy is taking a comeback. It's making a comeback, meaning that many countries that once perhaps abandoned this idea that in the traditional ways of thinking about industrial policy, where you pick winners, you pick industries, or you pick sectors, or you pick companies that in the interest of the country you want to see thrive because either they have massive job growth potential or they privilege a certain type of economy that you want to progress. And that was kind of left back in the 2000s. But as you see now, and that ties in nicely with the geopolitics, a lot of countries and regions are deciding to look again at industrial policy and thinking about their national security interests, but also, in a place where there are all of these wars and all of these competitive sort of drives to push, whether AI or semiconductors or other industries, you're seeing this much, much more being a feature of the trade landscape. So taking it back to the Caribbean region, we aren't left behind in thinking now about how do we want to develop not just national industrial policies, but ones that actually take into account our regional context, which is that we are made up of these 15 countries all over the region. How do we work together to identify sectors that have the best potential to pivot our economies? And what are the types of infrastructures we need to develop that industrial policy?
So this really does feel like Sir Arthur Lewis 101, industrialization of the British West Indies, which is something he penned so long ago, doing pretty much a very similar kind of thing. Where do we need to look at what types of industries do we need to that could provide growth? Of course, his great focus being that of dealing with the large labor pool. But we know, of course, that within this current fourth industrial revolution, it's a different mix. We're actually running short of people in many instances as well. So we're gonna. I suppose it's industrial revolution, industrialization of the British West Indies 3.0.
Exactly. I mean, if you think of Arthur Lewis and his name, of course, he had international, regional, and national experts there, and obviously, industrial policy, one of the forefathers of the creation of economic development industrial policy was Sir Arthur Lewis. So it was quite something to be able to, how many ever years on since the 1970s, rethink, as you're calling it, the precepts, the underpinnings of industrial policy. We're no longer dealing with just labor and capital, but digitization, innovation in different ways where technology is forcing us to think very, very differently about how we strategically create an industrial policy. And the other little, interesting, ticklish thing going on here is we're doing that in a context where the major powers, those that we seek market access, so we want to export our, whatever we produce, and where we have the biggest potential to export, they're engaged in these wars with each other and erecting these barriers to trade. So it's very multidimensional, very multipolar, and very fragmented, the environment we're living in. But we're seeing at the same time, almost in a contradictory fashion, whilst multilateralism is seeing some of the major challenges to its sustainability, we're also seeing increasingly countries and regions looking more internally at finding ways to band together. So in the region, the food security 25 by 25, well, it's probably 25 by
30 now. Yes.
Go ahead.
No, sorry. I didn't mean to disturb you, but yes, I was just saying, yes, it is, I think, interesting that you're pointing out so many of these large initiatives. And we have to also speak about, I suppose, within this context, some of the rising powers, particularly Guyana, and the opportunities that are presenting themselves as a result of oil and gas in Guyana, and how that can certainly be used to create downstream industry in Guyana, and the kind of investment that it has certainly been looking for so long in terms of transformational infrastructure.
Exactly, Calix. And the thing about it is, in the Caribbean, if we think of the types of sectors that naturally lend themselves to consideration as part of this regional industrial policy, you're absolutely right. We have commodity-rich, traditionally thought of as extractive industry-ripe economies, the bigger ones where the land allows you to develop agriculture, but also discover oil and be the food basket for the region as we think about moving forward. But we're also some of the most highly specialized niche markets in terms of tourism, nutmeg, in the case of Grenada, but sea moss is making a comeback. And the ocean economy, all of the new potential for commercialization, discovery, industrial growth lie in our massive ocean economy prospects, and thinking also about renewable energy, whether it's solar, geothermal, wind, etc. So it's a good segue into the second workshop we decided to host here as part of the Remix.
Janine, that sounded like quite a lot to take in one day, though. I don't know how.
Well, it was 3.
Okay.
It was 2 workshops in one.
Right, but the first, just that industrial policies topic alone seemed like it could be added for the entire week, but or more.
It could be. And just to be fair to the process, CARICOM has been leading this process for a number of years, and really Suriname has taken the lead in trying to reinvigorate the industrial policy from the 1990s to take account of the new realities. So Suriname is the lead member state on it. And they're now at a stage where the member states have kind of fed into the draft strategy, and there needs to now be ownership at the CARICOM level. So what is the institutional features of CARICOM, which is obviously the regional entity that the member states are part of? How do they buy in? How do they take it to the private sector, to the women's groups, to the civil society groups, to the farmers? We had farmers at our events, and we had Helen's Daughters, and we had the chambers. So in order for any of these things, industrial policy to really embed itself, it needs ownership, and not at only the governmental level, but people who are living and breathing and benefiting from the direction that industrial policy is being, concocted to go in. It has to resonate with the people who form part of it. So it's a massive undertaking, and we just wanted, as part of this project, given the close intersection with trade, which is really my area of expertise, we wanted to give them the opportunity to have another consultation based in St. Lucia.
The idea of industry, and I mean, obviously, it's the understanding of what industry is now perhaps has changed. But the traditional idea of industry, as hardened manufacturing,
you're right.
That type of stuff. Is that still? I mean, is that passé? Because, and I'm asking that especially within the context of what we're hearing coming out of the United States of America. They're saying we are simply not manufacturing enough anymore. And you raise it, of course, the issue of them looking at it from a security perspective. Hey, if we're not building ships anymore, if we're not building, have these factories that can actually output certain things, which we were able to do back during World War II, then what happens if we in fact find ourselves in World War III without that capacity? So is there a need for the Caribbean to still certainly be thinking a lot about manufacturing, about even heavy industry? Should that be part of our ambition?
So I'm always amazed at how Calix, you seem to be an expert in every area that you talk about, and no surprise here that you're right on the money with this. So one of the big issues that the Caribbean has to grapple with is, you're right, that the bigger juggernauts like the United States has decided, out of what it calls national security interests, to repatriate a lot of the outsourced manufacturing capacity to the United States, because they see it as a threat to their economic but also their geopolitical well-being. So that's why the policy of America First and Liberation Day, and forcing people not to export so much but to rethink the premises of, how do we keep more mercantilistic policy, really? How do we keep more in the country?
Right.
Now, for the Caribbean region, that policy cannot work for a number of reasons. We are by nature small and open economies. And so because there's not very much natural complementarity, or necessarily the best conditions for us to trade with each other alone, we will always have to go to the international market. But the choices lie in deciding which of the sectors we deem to be too important to outsource, which of the sectors we think gives us a comparative advantage in economic terms. That is, in terms of opportunity cost, what is the best bang for our buck in terms of what we invest in. But also, moving out of that heavy machinery, when you think of industrial policy, in the region, that does not lie in big manufacturing capacity. That lies for many of our countries in services economies. So industrial policy often has this ring of being about these hard infrastructural big manufacturing capacities. But as I said, as the region, and if you look at the industrial sectors that are being earmarked by the consultants for the CARICOM, it's things like, yes, agro-processing, which you could think of as manufacturing in some ways, but also things where we really do have a comparative advantage, our cultural and creative services, right? Our niche tourism, but also our agriculture and niche services. Also, ICT. So how do we leapfrog using the digitalization opportunities, and the ocean economy, or the blue economy? Now, for some of that, certainly you will need the harder infrastructure. But the idea really is to try to identify those sectors that have the greatest potential for growth, where we do have a natural comparative advantage. And food security is another area where, just as the United States decided it needed to do more with its own semiconductors, and it needed to do more with its own manufacturing capacity, the CARICOM heads have decided that food and being able to feed ourselves is an area of prioritization coming out of COVID and all of the global supply chain shocks, etc. So it's a mixed bag for the region, and we can make strategic choices for our industrial policy that makes sense for our region and the growth trajectory that we have put forward for ourselves as a region.
And I coming back to this whole issue as well, because I mean, of course, we have been focused quite a lot on services, and you rightfully said so. The Caribbean highly dependent on tourism, but then at the same time, we don't really have. Well, I mean, besides maybe Caribbean Airlines, which has a particular interest, we don't really have. We don't own a lot of the airlift that is coming into the Caribbean, and so we're still left up to the decisions that are made out of a Delta, out of an American Airlines, a JetBlue, to decide what routes they're going to fly. I mean, should we perhaps be thinking about having greater capacity in some of these critical areas, like the logistics of trade, the airlift, the cargo as well? Maybe take a page out of Turkish Airlines. Dubai does, they have their own airlines. So is that one of some of the missing elements that we need to bring in?
Now, if I could put a dime for every time people talk about transport in the region, whether it's air or sea or interconnectivity of any kind, logistics, I would be a millionaire, because this is clearly a prerequisite to any kind of any kind of regional policy, whether it is airlift or sea lift or just interconnectivity at the level of ICT. And in all three of these, we are left wanting. So that's the hard infrastructure part of, and the necessary investment that has to be made. There are things and instruments that are already available under the revised treaty, and, decisions that have emanated from the heads of government or quotas that require us to do more legally with putting together an air services or air transport policy. Now, when the rubber hits the road is the financing, the cost of doing that. These islands are not easy. They're short sea and short airlift destinations. So you won't believe that most of the energy is burnt when a plane goes up and down. Now, to get from one island to another. So we're talking about, somebody once said to me about, if it were easy, it would have been done already. And we have to give our politicians some credit that it cannot have been easy while this has failed so many successive administrations across the region, that we cannot seem to get it right. It is very costly. It doesn't mean it cannot happen, but it's certainly something that will require a lot of political will, but a lot of investment to ensure that we really can sustain these national carriers. We now have, we've seen the demise of the former version of LIAT. We have Caribbean Airlines, we have Inter-Caribbean. These are lifelines, but we also have on the sea, we have Carib Connect happening now. So it's left to be seen whether the political will translates into more effective policies and more effective transportation across our region. But there are other things that we can do, including decreasing the cost of fuel, renewable energy and fuel. We haven't even gone into energy.
Right.
You'll have to bring me on for another show just for energy.
Certainly. And that's going to be very welcome. Certainly, because that's a major topic.
That's a
and
major
in fact, and
topic.
we actually, it just so happens that next month is Energy Awareness Month, and so we're actually going to be looking at that every week and trying to get some focus on that. So yeah, certainly, if you want any time, we'll definitely want to take that in. But in the few moments that we have, though, in terms of the day two, you did mention that you were focusing on, is it the bioeconomy?
Yeah, the bioeconomy, and even inviting people from, as I said, all over the region and the world. Most people started their interventions at the workshop on, we didn't know what this was. But more importantly, I thought the reflection that came out is, we didn't realize that we are already engaged in a bioeconomy. And bioeconomy is just really the product of or the processes that go into commercializing sustainably the things that are part of our nature, our natural resources, the biological and the terrestrial and ocean-based organisms, but also processes that we can sustainably harvest. And so in the context of the Caribbean, we're talking about things from the agriculture, sustainable agriculture, to fishing, to sea moss, to aquaponics, to energy that comes from the natural resources around us. So from the very base sort of raw materials, but all of the value chain, thinking about how nature can be sustainably managed so that it actually becomes an economic lifestyle and development policy that we are careful also to conserve for future generations. And that is the important part, is that trade used to be thought of as just, we just expand and expend the natural resources around us. It is not sustainable. So from climate change all the way to ocean economy, anything to do with how do we sustainably commercialize the resources around us, the biodiversity around us in the region, forms part of that bioeconomy agenda.
Wonderful. And of course, no doubt, hopefully those 2 days were very, very productive. And we will certainly be hearing a lot more regarding the outputs of these types of workshops. And of course, always a pleasure to be able to have these types of conversations. And thanks so very much for making it happen. Dr. Genevieve Remy, of course, of the Sir Sridhar Ramphal Center for Trade Policy over at the University of the West Indies. Any parting words?
Thanks so much for having me. Yes, just absolutely. Thank you. Keep on doing the wonderful work of elevating the conversation that you do, Calix. And if anyone wants to know more about our project, which is an amalgamation of Yale and Tufts University and collaborators, Nature Finance this time came, and ECF, and the CARICOM Secretariat, and the Oxford Center at Tide. It's a huge mammoth set of collaborators that came to the region and came to St. Lucia in particular to have this conversation. So thank you to the government people who participated, Helen's Daughters, the chambers, all of the Ministry of Trade. I just want to thank everyone who made it a whopping success. So thank you also for having me, and the media that covered it over the 3 days.
Fantastic. And of course, thanks, and have yourself a wonderful weekend. Have a good one.
Thank you, my friend. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. And of course, to all our listeners out there, thanks again for following us here at the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. Of course, it's the final program for the week, and we'll be back again, God willing, another program on Monday. Hope you can join us for that in a brand new month. And of course, do stay safe. Take in all the various happenings on the weekend, and if you are in fact on the road, I know there are political events happening. So please be cautious and respectful of everybody on the road and wherever you may go as well. I'm your host, Calix George Jr., saying goodbye.